Hi everyone, and welcome back to the YouTube channel. I am Mommy Milestones, and today the guys are cutting hay. One field is getting fourth cutting, the rest of this behind me is getting its third cutting. We just finished up the last of the second cutting. Every month, basically about the 4th or the 20 something, we cut on Mother's Day, we cut on Father's Day. He cut 2 weeks ago, the last of that hay is almost gone, and now is Labor Day, so it kind of is running into a monthly thing. We are actually going to get 4 cuttings from some or all of our farm because we still got a 90-degree week ahead of us starting yesterday, and this hay has been taking off. Basically overnight it started to get little blossoms. It's time to get it cut so that it's not too mature, not too tough, and will be a beautiful third cutting quality. Nice horse hay and ready to go. We were actually about ready to go on this field when a tornado hit our mid-Michigan area and caused quite a bit of storm damage. We've got several trees here on the farm and in our homestead yard that we've been trying to clean up. Here is a maple tree that came down in the front yard. We have got firewood, hot water, wood stored up, and we're working on more cleanup. The rest of us, well, these guys are starting in on the hay. So today, at 13 years old, Trey has been out using the sickle bar mower for the first time while his dad was working with the backhoe doing some other work. He's normally the tedder guy, which bumped me off of tedding and raking because to him, that's his sole job. So they got this tractor running for him a week or two ago, and he's been fussing over all the specifics of it. He got himself suited up with an umbrella, which is great for these hot days. It's nice and breezy, so when that sun's not on you, the open station tractor doesn't bother so much. Basically, how the whole hay season has been going is as fast as we can make it and get it baled, we've got people already waiting to come and pick it up. So it's a blessing. We're glad for it. It was such a wet spring that a lot of people were not able to get in on the first cutting because of the wetness. And then, like for us, we got an early first cutting because we got ahead of the wet. It's been real good. I saw an ad the other day for hay, square bales, and their for sale picture was a picture of a snake sticking out of a bale. So, full of weeds is not a good picture to have, full of dead snakes or, you know, whatever, leaves and things like that. We try to always keep any bales that get baled along the edge of those woods as the leaves start to fall this time of year. We are already getting some maple leaves on the ground, and then of course there's, you know, leaves just in general from storm damage. So we put all that aside and we try to always sell our best. My husband is real adamant about not trying to pass off junk to other people, which is why we've always kept pigs and cattle in the past. Then if you don't have a great hay season, maybe the cattle will do better that year because they're getting any surplus instead, and maybe it'll be a good cattle price year. But this is a nice mix of grass. We've got some alfalfa in there, where last time it was so dry, the grass wasn't growing great, and it was a lot of alfalfa. But it's definitely not as high as when we cut it last time. You can see here at their cut line. He said some areas way out there, you know, up to your hips high. It just varies. So like here, it's more grassy, a little less. And this was seeded differently right here than the rest of it. I think it was because of the gravel driveway. So you can see real bushy right in here. It's amended the soil so much by having a permanent base with our hay. Years ago we had terrible thistles through here, patches that you couldn't even walk through, and now the areas that were thistles are so dense in alfalfa that it really took over from that. I'd mentioned it before, Goats Eat Weeds, a very interesting documentary on the cycle of things, but you can see nothing and then all of a sudden you start getting some blossoms. So what happens is that stem starts getting tough and mature, so you want to get it before that. So we're definitely ahead of that. This will be a real nice third cutting. Let me know in the comments below if you are pricing your bales, square or round, based on the cutting. In our area, it's always sold by cutting, not by weight. And we've had some people, which is odd for our area, to be asking the weight of the bales, because Michigan, we don't sell by weight. It's all by, you know, this is a round bale, first cutting quality, hay quality for horses or cattle, that kind of thing. This guy's been working so hard. He got right to it. So proud of him. But we've definitely recovered from the droughts. Like I had mentioned before, the neighbor across the road had planted late, and his beans are as big as anybody else's that was around, because some of the plants in fields didn't make it from the drought, and they had to recover, if they could recover at all. So this hayfield is looking real nice because of it. The only thing I can guess about people asking about weights is maybe they're in an area where they suffered more drought conditions, or maybe they're not even in state or from our area. A lot of hay gets shipped around the country because of that middle belt, you know, they call the corn belt, not having feed, and they have feedlots, so they have animals that they have to send them food. We went in the peak of the drought about July out of state, and we were seeing the wheat, and it was so low that people will notice a shortage, I would imagine, this winter for straw for bedding. A lot of people turn to alternatives during times like that, and I know one of the first things that I had heard of were people doing baled corn stalks for bedding for those animals. And because of the drought conditions, you know, that might be available this year, unless people are chopping to try to get that, you know, silage in there. So many things to think of when raising animals, and not just, you know, growing a crop to factor in. And, you know, like I said, I was not raised on a farm and taught all this stuff. I learned a lot from my husband because he'd been around it his whole life. Oh, woodchuck hole, big dirt ball. We find them all the time and try to fill them in. That's rough on the tedder teeth and the hay rake teeth. Tedder teeth are pretty tough, but boy, those new hay rake teeth sure have helped a lot. Not buying those ones at Tractor Supply. They broke every time out to the field, and it's been, oh, a year and a half now, I think, since we switched, maybe 2, and we still haven't had a broken tooth. So the haymaking has been going really well. It has been 90 degrees and hot. They tedded the whole field yesterday. They knew it was going to be hot this morning, so we've talked about before about leaf shatter. We want to keep this intact, so they started out early today trying to get in a little bit before the heat, and they're almost done with it. They've got a few more passes to make. We've got Trey on his John Deere 2-cylinder, and Dad over here. The umbrellas really help a lot to keep the sun off you so that you're in the shade, and then it doesn't quite feel like 90 degrees or 100 plus degrees because of sitting in the sun. So we're midday now, probably about 1 o'clock, maybe 2 o'clock, and the dew has definitely dried off, but there's still a good amount of ground moisture. It hasn't been under the blazing heat all day. I don't even think we've topped out in our temperature yet. So here's Dad. He's running the John Deere 2-cylinder 70 diesel. His is a 670 hay rake. They've been starting to watch. Both of our hay rakes are the same direction, and if you can get a right and a left hand discharge, then you can do a little bit easier of a row. They made up that tandem hitch and it works really good. It's a big time saver on a big field when you're working like this. But like they said, in the past, doing these in sections, he figured this is 15, maybe 17 acres. They divide this big field into about 3 sections, sometimes 4, depending on how much volume there's going to be. So this is what they're working on. I'm going to have to go out there with weed whacker, clean up around the trees and the poles and all that a little bit later. I'm definitely going to be waiting until the evening to get this done just before cow milking time, because being out there in the sun and the heat, it's a lot. And I have been weed whacking around here for days trying to make things look better. Here's the hay up close. You can see you got a lot of nice green that's going to just be laying out drying. This will sit here all day. There's a nice breeze. And like I said, the temperature hasn't dropped out yet. The rows aren't so big that it can't dry, and they'll be getting this all baled. So I just pulled up the weather and it says it's actually about 87, 88 degrees right now with the temperature still climbing. And it is forecasting occasional showers or possible thunderstorms tomorrow. But now they've added rain on Friday. So I believe that they will be baling this tonight. Probably a little break for lunch when they're complete. Give it a couple hours to stand, get a little more dry, and then start with a round baler. We had discussed doing some square bales, but we literally have people waiting on more round bales before we were even getting this cut. So there's plenty of other field space that can go into square bales. The cows in the barn right now, they're doing round bales and normally they're on squares. So Trey's running the John Deere 730 diesel today with the 74 hay rake that he got. I think this one was from his grandfather. And he's going to take a break to go get some water. I'm going to get back to what I was doing, and we'll check in back on these guys in a little while. Well, he's starting in baling. He's given it a little bit of time to dry, fiddled around, serviced the baler, put away the other tractor, the hay rakes, and had his lunch. And you can tell just in the time that has gone by, we've raised up another couple of degrees. We're at 89 right now. The hay is changing color. When you get out there, it looks like there's rows of brown instead of rows of green. And that is part of the thing that he's always very concerned about, making sure that he's making the best hay he can make and not leaving hay to get left out and get rained on. And one of the things that we do for that is to constantly check the weather, because I had just said rain possible tomorrow afternoon. Now the whole radar is showing a great big storm coming our way by like 7 o'clock tonight. So he's got to be done baling and have the hay under wraps. So what we've been doing is laying out a tarp on the ground so that there's no ground contact to cause a moisture spot, a flat spot, and to absorb the ground rain. And then we put a great big roofing tarp over the entire pile as a pyramid, and it's been working really well. He's also found he can use the storage trailer and shove in one bale at a time. So our last field that we caught last week, there was 2 bales left. He just tucked them in there so that we have that tarp available for this field. So that's my job next, after he gets this row here cleaned up, to have that tarp ready so that he can start unloading the bales, because he's found it's easier to just drive the tractor back here with the baler and unload the bale right where he wants it, rather than having to move them all later on with the backhoe. It's a lot of extra driving on the field anyway, but the backhoe is just so heavy. It's a lot easier to just go ahead and move it to where he wants to park the bales, right with it in the baler. All right, so while he's baling, my canner is running and I can step away from it today. I'm doing water bath canning instead of pressure canning. And this is a good time to pick up treats. I am giving apple drops to the cows. They love them. And my mama cow has been eating some round bales from last year and her milk production went way down. So we gave her a new round bale from about a week and a half ago. And that was a bit of a boost on her milk today. And I've been giving her apples daily, but that wasn't enough alone. But you gotta watch it. Not too many apples or you're gonna be doing some extra work of poo duty, cleaning out their pens. So this is a nice treat for them. And if I divide it between the barn cows and the cows in the pasture, then everyone is well adjusted. So we'll go through. This is the apple orchard here in the yard. And the apples are doing beautifully, but they're not quite ready. This side gets a lot of sun. They're looking really nice. I've been thinking about starting some applesauce. Most of the trees though, they're very small. This is a newer tree. I think this one was called a pink lady. Some of them are just so small, and occasionally you get tricked because we've got a walnut tree right behind us, and that storm got them blown everywhere. Got pumpkins growing over here. We got brush piles still to clean up, but we've just been going at it a little bit at a time and just doing a little job like this when it's this hot. See, that's really small. This tree never does very large apples. I don't know what exactly they are, but they're nice, very sweet, syrupy apple. So it's nice to add just a handful of these to a batch of cider. And if you don't get them, they're all gonna just fall to the ground. I don't spray my apples, so if I see one like that, it's not gonna get eaten anyway. I'll just go ahead and pull it and let anything go into the rest of the fruit on the tree. She likes her apples, but there's a pile there, there, and there. And this is the first apple she's had today. This is just from slightly greener hay and yesterday's apples. So it's good to not give them too much. You don't want it aggravating them. These guys, they're ready for a pen clean out, but I cannot do it in this heat. It'll have to be later today as it cools down. Look at them go after them. They just love it. They've been mooing, making all kinds of noise. They smell that fresh hay being baled and they say, hey, we want better. But here around the bottom, she's been taking her head in her feeder and throwing it all out on the floor. Has been moving right along. He's having a bit more moisture on the other side of the waterway. It's a lot thicker alfalfa over there, and I think that's from years past being different soil types and everything. Being a river farm, you know, it changes foot to foot even, and we have some areas like I was showing, it's lighter and grassier, and then it gets all alfalfa-y, and where those thistles were, it's real thick, heavy alfalfa. So he switched to just baling this side over here to get this side done and to have them separately. His first one that came out was pretty moist. Our hay tester actually broke a contact in the battery box, but you can see where the alfalfa is drying a little bit slower. It's a lot greener, and we want to know better which ones to wrap, which ones to sell or hang on to. We had one bale that started to sweat and got a little dusty and moldy on the bottom, so we just fed that to our cow and she's appreciating it. But others, they came out real nice and dry and they're looking real good. We did learn there's a trick some people will do when they come to look at your hay or buy your hay. If you put the rod or the tip of the hay tester in, you're supposed to stop and read the moisture. So you can do it in various spots. If somebody sits there going like this, they're causing friction, and that's going to give a false reading on that. And we found that people are doing that, trying to say, well, this is, you know, this percentage or whatever. and you can see the number changing if you stand behind them. We actually had somebody say that they wanted to come and check out the hay. Yep, we'll take it. Well, no, we'll take it for less because it's not the moisture we wanted. So you got to watch for that. We don't accept that kind of, you know, negotiating with hay. We set the price on it and it is what it is. So whether you want it or not, it's up to you. We're not going to make you take it, but we're not setting up a lot of time when somebody says they want to come look at the hay. It's usually just weeding out a lot of trouble in the future for us to just pass. And when somebody says, I want to come pick up 6, you say yes to that person because you can have that 6 gone without dealing with delays or whatnot. So if you're wondering what one of my other jobs might be today, this is it. We have been splitting and cleaning up from the storm, and we have been growing our pile of firewood. So along with our fence row cleaning, we had some cleanup to do in the bin. So we got it partly stacked yesterday. I threw in a pile more. We're just trying to work 15, 20 minutes at a time to do what we can. The temperature's a little bit cooler now. It might be 84, 83. But the sun is just not blazing hot with all that humidity. Our clothes were just sticking to us earlier. So I'm going to go ahead in here and I'm going to stack some more of this wood because if it rains tonight, if I can keep it dry, all the better. Well, we've been fiddling around here and doing what we can, but you can see how the sky clouded up. That little thunderstorm ended up south of us just a little ways, like within 15, 20 minutes south of us, and we were able to just keep on going. I've been loading up the firewood and he has been working on the bales, and he's over in that thicker section. It's definitely a lot more moist over there. The night dew should be probably starting in within the next half hour or so, but I was just looking at this one here, second to the end. You get up close to the wooded areas and possibly areas that's more shade. You can see that's a lot more wet right there on that edge. So that's why you don't like to do barn storage, and we like to leave them out in the field to let them air as long as possible. It's nice to not have to cover them with a tarp right away because that can heat up and then you just get a lot of moisture and mold producing spores from the heat being underneath the tarp. This is the best thing for them, just being wide out in the open, and then basically they'll dry out more and continue to cure right here. It looks like he's got about 2.5 more rows to go. 2 short rows and 2 long rows, so not too bad. We'll be finishing up here probably about 8 or 8:30 at night. I'm finishing up my job for the night. We've got to go pick up some trash and some beer cans along the side of the road because we don't want that ending up in the fields when he's cutting. Whenever he does the hay fields, he goes along the ditches and does a little cutting there too to keep the place nice and neat. It also keeps the weeds from sending seeds out into the field.